This episode is brought to you by Cobri Digital. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Entrepreneur Rush. Today, it's finally time to talk about YouTube. Why we think it's undervalued, why it's the platform to be on for businesses of all sizes, and most importantly, how you rank well once you finally decide to get there.
Yeah, I really love this topic. It's so interesting to see a platform like YouTube, that's relatively mature, but at the same time has such a function that's very future-proof, right? We see video, we see audio rising, we see voice search rising as well, and YouTube can do all these things, right? It's something that very much has a future, even though it's such an old platform.
Totally. I mean, I couldn't agree more. People are saying, it's not going to stand a chance against TikTok because content creation has never been easier. And while people are absolutely right that content creation has never been easier, and a huge part of what made YouTube so strong is gone in terms of its entertainment factor, people are forgetting a lot about those elements you just mentioned. They're owned by Google. They have complete control over the search market. They're the go-to place if you're trying to have a problem solved, or if you have a quick question, if you're looking for a video guide. Whereas, TikTok is more about the influencing, content creation, entertainment sort of aspect. And although there is value provided on TikTok tremendously, it's much more revolving around its algorithm and sort of TikTok pushing messages to you rather than you trying to search and find a solution for a specific problem.
And that's the beauty of it, that the two work hand in hand and together, without even meaning to. You'll go to TikTok for entertainment on your phone, right? Or whatever other platform that may be. And then you continue using Google, you continue using YouTube for searches, for tutorials, and so on. And I think we're already seeing a huge rise in that. And that'll just continue to happen as Google starts putting more and more YouTube videos as search results on its search pages. Let's start with with how to optimize your YouTube videos so that they rank higher on YouTube and then also on these Google search results.
So first of all, you want to have the right keyword, and there's several reasons for this. I mean, there's the obvious one that if you're ranking for a keyword that no one's searching for, it doesn't matter that you're number one. You're still going to be getting 0 views and it provides no value. But additionally, there's also an SEO reason that you want to choose the right keyword, because relevance matters a lot. YouTube is all about driving engagement. And if you're ranking on a keyword that's not the right one, people click on your video and they leave, well, you're going to get penalized for that. YouTube does not want that. Similar to the good old days of Google, I love to make the relevance of saying, like, if you search for cat and you end up on a site full of dogs, people are no longer going to be using Google. And that pretty much perfectly explains why platforms such as Google and YouTube care so much about relevance, because they're only popular insofar as people can find exactly what they're looking for. Where drawing it back to TikTok, right, their strength is suggesting the right things. Well, Google and YouTube only works if it shows you exactly what you're asking for. And when choosing the right keyword, there's a balance of things you want to do. Obviously, we have the relevance element, but you also want to make sure that there's not too much competition. Get popular keywords, sure, but once again, if you're on page 2 or 3, you're not going to be getting the hits that you need. So make sure that you can beat the competition before you try to challenge it. Look at the amount of videos that's there. Do some keyword, research in terms of, are they solving the specific thing people are asking for? Because often you'll have a search phrase such as how to cold smoke fish, and there's going to be a video that's somewhat relevant, but it's not exactly that. Or maybe someone searched for how to cold smoke salmon, and there's a video about how to cold smoke something else. And if that's the case, well, although there might be competition, you can easily beat them because your keyword is going to be more accurate. Additionally, look at the quality. Is the video that's there actually good? Can you beat it? Well, then, although there might be a lot of videos, you have a chance. And, in the case that there's too many videos or you can't beat the competition, well, pick some of the lower hanging fruits first. The amazing thing about YouTube being undervalued by businesses is that there are so many search phrases with little to no competition, and you can tap into that. We've seen clients that have gotten upwards of 200,000-300,000 views with just simple videos with 0 spend in advertising, no fancy equipment, nothing over the top, just value.
Yeah, I think right now is the time to act, is the time to not pick those, search terms where everyone already has videos on. It's time to pick the low-hanging fruits. I mean, there are so many of those. Why waste your time going after the more difficult ones?
Right? Blog posts everywhere. Everyone's talking about content creation and writing more blog posts. I mean, you're competing with hundreds of thousands of people when you could be picking people's preferred platform, which nowadays is video, with significantly less competition. What are you doing?
Exactly, totally agree. And a bit, you mentioned this with the keywords, and it's something that's super relevant also with the title, right? Relevance. Because even if you rank high, number one on a search term that, people are searching for, there's no competition or whatever, if people click on your video, don't like the video, and leave, YouTube penalizes for you. Penalizes you for that. At the same time, if your title is, your title needs to be enticing, needs to include the keyword, needs to tell people what your video is about. But if your title is enticing but not relevant to your video, people are going to click in because they like the title. They think this is the video I'm looking for. And if the video is not about that, if the video doesn't match up, they're going to leave. And again, YouTube penalizes for you for that. You're not going to show up on that search phrase anymore. So you really want to make the title something that entices people to click, because you do want them to move through that, right? You want to include your keyword, and sometimes your keyword might not be super interesting. For example, this podcast, right? YouTube SEO is not necessarily the most interesting thing, but if instead you title it something like YouTube SEO, how to rank number one, that suddenly makes it much more interesting, much more engaging. And then people click in on that. And if the video then actually provides this value, people stay on, people subscribe, people like the video, and suddenly, you'll start ranking higher.
Absolutely. I think the interesting thing about titles is that it's short, it's technical, it has rules similar to SEO on other platforms, but it's just so much more simple. I mean, working with SEO on websites and written content, it's just a ton more difficult. It's all about link building and canonicals, etc. Whereas on YouTube, all they're really asking is, pick the right keyword, put your keyword in your title, make it a bit enticing. It's really just, it's too easy, and you don't need an agency for it. Just start.
It's a question of common sense.
It's a question of common sense, absolutely. And I think the thing that you have to remember in the title, just to make it abundantly clear, right, is that the first thing that appears has to be the keyword. This is both because this is how the algorithm understands what it's about, so it's about that relevant element, but it's also about relevance in the sense of more people click on it. If people search for something and you have the exact same title, people are more likely to click on it naturally, and that click in turn also boosts, right? So it's a double win in terms of YouTube SEO. You have the relevant keyword, so YouTube understands that this is, the right thing to show, but you also have the higher click-through rate because people see exactly what they searched for. And that sort of brings us to our next point, description, right? You have the right keyword, you have the right title. Well, description is sort of the next step, and the most important ones, at least if you're used to working with typical SEO, because this is the place where you can write a lot of text, where you can be technical, where you can put in your keywords, you can put in synonyms, you can provide summaries, you can link to the things you're speaking to in the video, and you can do all those more basic SEO things. And that's exactly what you want to do. You want to start it out by having your keyword presented and then elaborating briefly, right? So you have YouTube SEO. Here's how you rank number one on YouTube. And then you briefly summarize the episode. You provide value. You make sure that the keyword is repeated a couple of times. You use your few synonyms in case people search differently. And then in the end, it's back to the value. You've now done enough of the technical stuff. You've written 200-300 words, maybe even less. And now you're back to focusing on the value. So other than recapping, you want to link to the software you talked about in the video. You want to link to the product you talked about. You want to help them find the next video that's relevant, etc.
Yeah, especially with that next video is something that's super important, because YouTube obviously wants to keep engaging users for as long as possible. And if your video sends a user on to another video on YouTube, and that person watches that other video on YouTube, then you're going to be rewarded for that. Your video will start ranking higher.
Absolutely. And this is just the number one point I want to drive home today. YouTube SEO is super simple. Similar to SEO on Google, it's not about robots. There are rules, there are technical aspects, but at the end of the day, it's all about providing value. YouTube benefits when people like YouTube, and people like YouTube when they actually provide the solutions people want. So if you're working with YouTube SEO, all you have to do is ensure more engagement. Give YouTube what they want. Make sure that people stay on YouTube. Provide value. drive engagement, make sure they stay on the platform.
I mean, again, it's common sense, right? Help people and people will like you, and then YouTube will like you. And that brings us to hashtags, right? You want to help YouTube figure out, what your video is about. And hashtags is one way to do this. Now, hashtags are most commonly associated with Twitter and Instagram, but they're on almost every platform, right? You'll find them on TikTok, you'll find them on YouTube, for example, you'll find them on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and each platform, and this I actually find really interesting, each platform has a different number of optimal hashtags, right? You want to use 1 or 2 on Facebook, you want to use as many as you can on Instagram, and you can use from 5 to 8 on YouTube for optimal results. And this is where you really want to focus in on what your video is about. Make sure the hashtags are relevant, but at the same time, kind of like the keyword, make sure that it's hashtags that actually are relatively popular, but at the same time don't have too much competition.
Absolutely. I mean, hashtags is one of the best ways to reach your audience, to help YouTube better optimize your results. And it's interesting because a lot of people aren't adding them, although it takes just a couple of minutes. And the few people that add them don't do any keyword research. I mean, your hashtag should reflect the keywords. It's that simple. It's not for people. It's one of the few things that people don't scroll down to read, right? They're there. It's a way for you to tell YouTube what this is about. And that's why you want to include hashtags that are similar to your keyword, right? So synonyms, you want to have your actual keyword, and then you want to have some sort of call to values that reflect the keyword. But the main thing here is that unlike most things on YouTube, this is actually made for the engine itself. And that brings us to the next step of YouTube SEO, which is interactive cards. And this is one of those that I see the fewest amount of people use. I mean, a lot of people do some basic keyword research. They have a title, they have a description, they might have a few hashtags. Sure, they could optimize all of that, but they have it, right? Interactive cards I rarely see, and when I do, it's not YouTube's built-in function. They actually rather edit videos themselves, upload them, and then there's some sort of cross-referencing. And just to everyone that doesn't understand what interactive cards is, it's YouTube's built-in function where during the video, you could add a little card that will refer to something you just said and has a link. So it can be a call to action or a call to value. For instance, say you're talking about subscribing, you can actually add a card in the video where people can click on it and now they're subscribed, therefore driving more engagement and making more people subscribe. Similarly, if you're referring to another video, you can add a link to that video and so forth, right? It's pretty straightforward. It's just a few clicks. You do it once you've uploaded the video, and yet people aren't doing it. So if you want to make the most of your YouTube SEO, this is one of those places where you can really get ahead of the competition because they're lazy. A lot of businesses aren't up to date. They don't understand how it works. Add those interactive cards, keep driving engagement.
Yeah, and those interactive cards are something you also want to have on your end screen, right? And like interactive cards in general, end screens are something that a lot of people forget, right? You've put out the video, people clicked on it, people watched it, and now they're at the end, you've done your job. But like you said, it's all about engagement. It's all about keeping people on the platform, continuing to watch your content. And your end screen is where you can really do that by using these cards, by, thanking people for having watched your video and then sending them off to more of your videos, to something related, to keep them in this kind of funnel, right? Keep them watching your content.
And the super interesting part here, it's sort of, it makes it extra important because a lot of people watch several videos in a row. And if you don't have a strong end screen, if they like your video, but you don't push them to watch another, often what they will do is they will go to the bar on the right side where YouTube suggests videos. And if your video is not one of those, you're actually helping your competitors rank better. So not only are you losing this person because he doesn't continue watching right away, you're actually losing your overall ranking position because you're helping another person rank well. Super interesting. And yeah, baffles me why people don't add end screens.
Yeah, and the worst or best part, however you want to phrase this of all this is a person who's watched your entire video, right? This is a person who stayed around till the end. It's someone who, has obviously loved the content you just provided. They are more than ready to go on and watch your next video, right? And you're just letting them go? You're just letting them go to your competitor? Like, you really want to, the end screen is the place where you really want to just hold on to this person. They liked you. You obviously like them because they watched your video. They're ready. Keep them watching your content.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in your end screen, just a few quick pointers. What you want to do is, of course, thank them for it, but don't spend too much time talking about things they don't care about, right? Continue providing value. So it shouldn't be a way for you to say, thank you so much, I would like if you do this. It should rather be a place to sort of boost the value that was already there. So if you like this video, watch this. And thereby you have a call to action that benefits you, but it also benefits them because they understand how to continue.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about guiding them, through the process. People don't necessarily want to go in and search for another for the next video. If you provide that for them, you're going to save them time. And I think that about sums it up. Emil, do you want to run us through the main takeaways?
Absolutely. So YouTube is hugely undervalued. And while there's a lot of strength to TikTok, YouTube is not going anywhere. It's backed up by Google. It controls the voice and video environment more in general. Although it's lacking in some content creation, this is most certainly going to come. So get on YouTube. There is very little competition. You can reach several thousand searches without issue in almost any niche. And then when it comes to optimizing your videos, this is sort of the key thing to do because it's not just enough to be there. You have to actually, rank for it similarly to your usual content. And this is where you want to work with something we've coined YouTube SEO. And in doing so, the first thing is finding the right keyword, making sure there's not too much competition, but at the same time, making sure people are searching for it, ensuring that it's relevant. Pick a title. In your title, include your keyword, but also make it enticing. YouTube SEO, how to rank your videos number 1. We have the SEO word in the first part, but we follow it up with some sort of reason to click. Then you want to have a description. This is where you can really put in a lot of text, and this is where you can really optimize technically. So, include your keywords, include synonyms, describe what's going on in the video, perhaps a recap, use links, provide value in the end. Choose hashtags. As on every platform, this is how it works. People don't understand this. People don't take advantage of it outside of Twitter and Instagram a lot, but you also want to use hashtags on YouTube. Here we recommend 5 to 8 for maximum reach. The exact number is a bit debatable in the data, but this is sort of the range in which you get the largest reach. What's important is that you don't just stuff keywords in there. So if you have 5 great ones, use 5. If you have 8 great ones, use 8. And balance between very popular hashtags and relatively popular hashtags, and always include your keyword in one of the hashtags. You then also want to use interactive cards. Try not to do this in your editing in Final Cut, etc., but use YouTube's own tool. Thereby, it's easier to click on the links and they can become more interactive, and this drives more engagement. And finally, always include an end screen. Engagement is everything when it comes to YouTube SEO. You don't want people to be going to your competitors when they've already watched your whole video and they're, just asking for something else. All right, everyone, that's it for today's episode. We hope you found a lot of value and that you're ready to get started with video also on YouTube. YouTube is a fantastic, hugely undervalued platform with very little competition despite its huge reach, and its relationship to Google is just going to make it amazing also for years to come. And now's the time to share and subscribe.